It's her story, the personal and the professional. Anita Bhogle and Aparna Piramal Raje will be in conversation with Milee Ashwarya. Milee Ashwarya is the editor-in-chief for commercial and business books at Penguin Random House India. Her focus has been on promoting the best Indian voices while publishing a range of bestsellers across segments during her career. Her authors include Shobha De, Karan Johar, Twinkle Khanna, Preeti Shenoy, Sonali Bendre, L.K. Advani, and a whole lot more. Anita Bhogle has over 2 decades, along with her sports broadcaster husband Harsha, ran a highly successful motivational series called The Winning Way, Learnings from Sports for Managers. The series translated into a book by the same name, which sold over 125,000 copies and started a new genre in motivational speaking. And Aparna Piramal Raje is an author, columnist, public speaker, and educator. Her latest book is Chemical Khichdi, How I Hacked My Mental Health. She also writes extensively on leadership, business, and design. Please put your hands together and welcome our speakers for this next session. Thank you.
We are here for a very important session and we have only 30 minutes. So I'm going to go straight into the heart of the topic, which is about women, her place in the world, in the workplace, and at home as well. And I have 2 really amazing women here with me. Both of them are my authors. Anita has recently written a book called Equal Yet Different. And Aparna is a writer, journalist, and she's written a book called Chemical Khichdi on mental health, as well as a book earlier on office spaces. So I'm going to start with Anita, and my first question to you is about the title. What do you mean when you say women are equal yet different?
Okay, let me just tell you a little story of where I got equal yet different from, because that itself is an interesting story. They mentioned, Harsha and I have been doing The Winning Way for over 20 years. And this was way back in 2004, and we were speaking to a group of senior executives from the Tata Group. And, we had a slide on, and it was a quote by Steve Waugh. And he was, this was in the context of leadership, and he had said that leaders must treat their players equally yet differently. So he had said that in that context where there are lots of non-negotiables like discipline and integrity and things. But within that, given that people are different, personalities are different, and everything, its backgrounds are different, he had suggested that, you treat them differently as well. And, one of the women executives walked up to me and said, this slide is so interesting, and I think it works perfectly for women because that is what women want. And that kind of, stayed with me, that women want some flexibility on the input, but they want to be weighed in the same scale as the men on the output. So no concessions there. So that stayed with me, and it came back. So basically what I'm saying is that women are equal in terms of ability and ambition, especially, the professional women that I have interviewed in the book. They have all qualified, and so obviously, they are equal in terms of that, but they're different in terms of the conditioning and different in terms of the challenges they face.
No, absolutely. And I think, women are supposed to, in the traditional sense, or, when we talk about India, to excel at various things, multitask. Career women, are in a very competitive workspace, have to do well. But they also have to, look after the parents, children, husband, and, the entire setup at home most of the times, more than men. So does it take a toll on the mental health of women, Aparna?
Yeah, I think that unfortunately, if you look at the statistics, especially of women, even the percentage of women who take their own lives, for example, who are housewives, is proportionately very high in India compared to other places. So mental health is a big issue, whether it's in the workplace or at home. In my personal journey, I've lived with something called bipolar disorder for the last 20 years. My book, Chemical Khichdi, is about that journey of learning to live with it and actually learning to thrive with it also. And the workplace has been a very important part of that journey, where at times it's been very stressful, but at times it's also been very healing, and it's been very therapeutic. So that's also been a huge part of the journey.
No, and the way you brought it together in your book, through your own anecdotes and personal stories, I think, makes the book only stronger. Anita, in your book, you talk about the potholes that women have to cross over and walk through. So, what are some of the biggest challenges that women face at work?
I think there are different kinds of challenges, and I think most of them have their roots in patriarchy and the fact that we are a minority at work. So there is, I mean, when you are in a minority, I think you get a lot more scrutiny, a lot more criticism. Even failures look magnified. One or two women failing or doing something wrong, and people turn around and say, oh, she had a chance and she's ruined it. Especially leaders who made it. Whereas if men fail, they don't get that kind of thing. There's so much emphasis on, how you should speak. And they say, that women have shrill voices and they are, they get hyper and things like that. But that is because women are different, right? So that brings us to this, this minority business, because all your rules are made for the majority. Even your leadership model, the default leadership model is male. And so apart from the work-life balance, which we talked about, I think these are the issues. And women themselves have a lot of limitations because, finally, at the end of the day, we are all conditioned because of this patriarchy. So it's men and women. And so, even women do things differently. The fact that you cannot negotiate well enough, the fact that you cannot network well enough, that you can't showcase your work, you can't stake a claim, to your, to whatever you want. You don't find women saying, I want this, I want that. And that doesn't work in today's world. Like, we are in the IT capital here, and in IT there's a saying that, the crying baby gets the milk. So it's that kind of a world, right? That you've got to demand. It's a very American kind of culture now. So all these things are challenges.
No, absolutely. And, you also talk a lot about that, in various of your speeches and talks that you do in the corporate world. Do you think women are tough on themselves? They look for validation for their work,
Yeah, I think, I don't think there's a single woman who doesn't look for validation. I think we are all doing that. And, there's a time I wrote about in the book that I was about in my 30s. I had been CEO of a business. I'd studied at Harvard. I'd gone to Oxford. I had a family. I had a supportive family. And yet I just felt so depressed in life. I really felt that life was not worth living. And for what reason was because I didn't think I was good enough. And good enough by these self-constructed standards that I had in my head. It's not that my family were telling me you're not good enough. It's not that, the people around me were telling me that I'm not good enough. And this is something that I repeatedly hear when I speak to women about wanting validation from on all counts, whether it is on their appearances, whether it's on their success, on skills, on personality. I think we just need a lot of validation. And I think it's important to actually acknowledge that, okay, this is the case and how do we get there? So in my case, my therapist actually told me, she's like, can you please write down these affirmations on an index card? And it was, one of them said that, may I choose myself and accept myself as I am because I'm good enough. And literally, I still carry these affirmations in my handbag, even though I don't look at them every day. But they were just so important for me to, literally rewire my brain. So
I think we need to pat ourselves on the back also.
Yes, I think women don't do enough of that, I think. And that is why books like Lean In are also so important. Women have to acknowledge each other also more because the reality is that women are doing very well at work. I think there's so many absolutely amazing women leaders and great multitaskers, very focused, driven, and successful. So what is it, and you talk about these things in your book, Anita. You talk about concrete things that women can do to really excel at work and be the best version of themselves. Tell us a little bit about that.
So, yeah, definitely. But I think it must start with a dream. I don't think women dream enough. And they don't share their dreams with other people because they're probably afraid that, what if I don't achieve whatever I've set out to do, those kind of things. So the first thing I think is having a dream. The second thing is getting over all these inhibitions and, what I call limiting behaviors that I just talked about, not being able to do certain things, not feeling confident, having that self-doubt. So they need to invest in skills and, grooming themselves. And the other investment that's important, I think, is in a support system, because I don't think any woman can do anything alone. And the reality is that, women do share the major part of the domestic burden. So that is the other thing that they need to do. And like I said, have a thick skin, because a lot of women go through guilt, and it has really nothing to do with, how educated you are or how successful you are or anything like that. So a thick skin, I would say, those are the kind of things women must do.
If I could just
Aparna
add
also
on to
talks
that.
about it a lot, right?
Yeah,
You talk
so-
about support system.
Yeah, so what I've said in my book a lot is that mental health is a team sport. It's not like a solo sport that you're playing by yourself. You really need that support of the allies in your life. Like in my book, for example, there are as many as like 60 people who have been part of my inner world, family, friends, my practitioners, just a host of different people who've helped me on this journey. And I think that, especially for women in the workplace, I wonder how that networking and that the system of the allies develops. And I think this is where, the male allies can play such an important role, because it's not just about having women against patriarchy. It's actually men and women both against patriarchy, because patriarchy is equally tough on men, actually. It's a very bad system for men as much as women. So I think having male allies has been a very important part of my healing, as much as having the sisterhood and having, other friends in my life.
You both refer to gender roles and how women have to multitask and wear different hats at different times and stages in their lives. How has it been for them in the pandemic? Because there was so much work from home and you didn't have the sanctuary of the office often. So
yeah, so I think work from home is being touted as the solution for women, because of the flexibility it offers and because of the convenience of not having to go to work. And that is correct, I think. But I also realized that men and women had very different experiences during the pandemic. And the women seemed more keen on going back to work. And I feel, that there are two reasons for this. One is that, we all have, and I'm saying more so the women, because, we are really straddling the two worlds, like work and home, that there is some switch in our brain. So it's like a work mode and a home mode. And all women go through that. And that somewhere has got, diluted because of the work from home thing. And while you think that, there's a lot of flexibility, you could end up working the whole day. That's what so many people are reporting. And the other is, just recreating the office experience at home has been more difficult for women, especially where homes are small or children are small. And, it becomes very difficult for the woman to just switch off and focus on work. Whereas if you move out of the house, I think it's much easier. So the hybrid model, I guess, is better.
yeah, no, absolutely. I completely agree. And we spoke about it briefly. So I have a little daughter, 8-year-old, and I find working from home difficult. I really like to go to work. And it's difficult. We were having a chat together that other day, and my daughter was standing with a placard, can I watch TV? Can I? And, everyone will want to come to you. If my husband is in the house and working, nobody disturbs him. But the staff, the daughter, the dog, everyone, and we're supposed to sort of find solutions also, right?
Piece of the woman. And initially it was very cute,
Yeah.
having the pet to do that. And, when newsreaders were reading news and you had something happening in the background. But then that doesn't work for too long.
And it's so different at the workplace, right? You are actually taken seriously. You have like more peace, So I call it my cave at work, and it's really beautiful for me. And so I think it's great that we are opening up and we can go back to work as well and have this hybrid culture. Aparna, you talk about 7 therapies, in your book to deal with mental health and any issues you're facing. And there's one therapy there on work called work therapies. Why don't you tell us all about it?
So the 7 therapies that I've talked about in the book are all drawn from everyday life and just talk about how we can embrace the world around us to help us heal with any kind of mental health challenge that we're facing, stress or anxiety or depression. And what I've mentioned about work is really that, there was a time in my life where I was writing for 4 editors at the same time because, of course, being bipolar, you want to prove yourself or you just want to have these delusions that you can do everything. So you take on these extra challenges. And I was actually reaching a stage where I was not able to meet my deadlines. And then finally, I had to come out and tell my editors that, look, I have this serious mental health condition, and this is the problem. And of course, coming out, so to speak, at work is for many people a big challenge because you don't want to disclose your mental health, which is so personal and private to you, at work because of the worries about stigma. Will it affect your job prospects, promotions, responsibilities, all of these different things. But actually what ended up happening was that luckily my bosses were very, very supportive. And they gave me more leeway. And we were able to work out a system where their needs and my needs were accommodated. So I could tell them that this is actually what I need from you. I need more time or I need more flexibility. And they would say, okay, fine, then we won't put you on the pages which have more deadlines. We'll put you to write for pages which have less deadlines. And we were able to find a fit. And I'm actually been working there for the last nearly 14, 15 years. It's led to a book, it's led to a teaching course, and many other speaking engagements, and many other things have emerged from that. So I would really say that the workplace can be a game changer in the positive way because everybody else in my ecosystem knew what was going on. My family, my friends, they knew what was going on. But my workplace didn't. But once I told them, I could be a lot more authentic. And like I've written in Chemical Khichdi, I literally said that by a certain point, bipolarity was on my resume. So I would literally, if I went for a new job, I would literally just say, okay, this is me, this is the package, I come with this. Please be prepared that there might be a bomb at some point and we'll have to deal with it. And they were, usually okay with it. And since then, I've never looked back. So I think looking at finding those allies again in the workplace who can support you and being really authentic has been very therapeutic for me.
Must have helped you in your work as well, I suspect. Because just getting it off your head must have helped you, right?
Yeah, and I think it helped them also, right?
Yes,
because I'm not messing up as much.
Correct.
Because they're not expecting something that I couldn't deliver also.
No, absolutely. So let's talk about companies now and management. Are things changing for women at work? Are companies more conscious about the needs of women, especially when they travel through different stages, pregnancy, post-pregnancy, or even without that, No,
definitely efforts are being made. But I see more efforts in the policy region, because I think when you talk about diversity and inclusion, it's a science and an art. So the science bit is really policy, putting things in place. And that, I think, is working by and large. But Danda always works, right? But it takes you only that far. When you have to deal with culture and changing mindsets, that is when, things will be better. For example, there's still this culture of working late. That's both unfair and it is not gender just at all. Whether the woman has to work late or her spouse works late, either way, it's not great for her, right? So just talking about doing things is not enough. Leaders must lead the way and they must change things, send the right kind of signals, themselves go home on time, tell people men to take, paternity leave and, do things like that and keep on questioning, saying, why don't we have women here? Why don't we have enough women? Till they do that, I think, things are not going to change. So you've got to be at it all the time and be honest and committed.
No, absolutely. I think, Aparna, you were very lucky because, we spoke about it earlier also, and in various stages, you had good mentors and people you could talk to openly about your situation, at home or, anything that you wanted to speak about. So that kind of sounding board is really important, I think, for women to succeed anywhere. And the support system you talk about, often. Tell us about that. I find that anecdote really interesting, once where you stuck and, your friend gave you very good advice on how to handle work.
What did they say? I'm trying to remember. That, in which context was this that they said?
this is when you were struggling at work.
Yeah. So there was one situation where I had a mentor who was really somebody Milee knows also very well. And they were, I do a lot of writing when I'm in this stage, when I'm getting kind of manic or I'm getting high. And that person, literally sat me down and said, do you want to live in your head or do you want to live in the real world? You should go to all these lit fests like this. You should meet up with your friends and have salons, and you should go to music festivals, and you should live in the real world and channel all your creativity over there, rather than living in your head and just writing all this stuff which is never necessarily going to get published. And I think, having people who can really have a very honest and authentic conversation with you is really what one needs, and especially for young people, I would say, we always talk about having mentors. It's so important to have these people in your life who can really tell you what you should be doing. Another mentor actually came up to me, he was very blunt, and he said that, I think that we all know that I think Aparna can control her emotions. The question is, does she want to? Is she enjoying it so much that does she actually want to? Which is something a therapist may not tell you that so bluntly, A therapist may actually sort of not be so honest. But people like that will just tell you that, say that in a very, very honest way. And I think that this is what we all need to hear about ourselves.
No, absolutely. I think it's so important for us to have people who can look at us at various times, and maybe times particularly when we are struggling, and, have an insight, into...
Yeah. I also want to say one thing about Milee is that she's actually managed to retain a lot of her senior women professionals in the organization. So we should ask her how she does that, because she actually gives them a lot of, she gives them a lot of flexibility. So when they, let's say, get married and they relocate and they want to work from there, they have that flexibility. When they're unwell or they have family commitments, she knows what's going on. So I think she really mentors the people around her very well also. So.
And I would just say that I think I talk to them. We belong to each other.
I believe a lot in the sisterhood, not as in ghettoization, but more as in supporting each other.
Being fair, but being understanding, because, I also have my good days and bad days. And, we have various kinds. I remember this other day, I was in a very important meeting. I was in the car. My car broke down, issues, you're going through all of that. And being in the board meeting, and you have to really be there, and you try and manage and stay cool and focused. So for me, my team is sort of like my second family. I'm very close to them. I have no inhibitions about it. I talk about it very openly, and I'm there for them all the time. They know that. So I think that also, knowing that I'm there, and they can talk to me about everything, and everyone is going through some situations, some serious ones others don't know about, but they come and talk to me, and it is all confidential. So I think the trust is also very important.
Yeah, but just to build on that, like being able to share your vulnerability at work with someone, who's your immediate line manager in a safe space is just the most amazing thing that can happen, right? Because we don't do that. Which of our leaders today will stand up and say that I have this problem, or I'm dealing with it, this is my problem? We expect our leaders to be perfect and to be on the ball all the time. So to be able to share that vulnerability with somebody in a safe space is really valuable.
Somebody you trust. Yeah. That is the key, I think, because, even research shows that if you have a good work culture at home, that is a bigger motivator for women than money. Women don't quit that easily if the work environment is good. And
absolutely.
Congratulations if you manage to create that.
No, I think it is true for me as well. I am here, I work with Penguin, and I'm here for more than 14 years is because I really thrive in the environment. It's very positive, creative. It gives me the freedom to do what I want to do. So I think all that is really important for women. And then, of course, there's the support system that we spoke about. I think we have 5 minutes left, and I definitely want to take some questions from the audience.
But I have a quick observation, and I would like to know your perspective. I've talked to a lot of women, young women, professionally, and all of them are saying, yes, the equality pendulum has moved a lot. A lot of women are in corporate world, and all of you have been talking about they are still having a lot of responsibilities. They are doing multitasking. what they are talking about is the skill set. That a lot of skill sets they are getting from society, from families, is to live in a corporate world. But when they have to live in the real life, they don't have the skill sets. And they are going to the therapist to understand how to cope with the challenges of life. So I would like to know if you are experiencing the same. Thank you.
Yeah, well, I'm a big believer in therapy, so I think that if you go to a therapist, it's a good thing. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think that, seeking help is from a professional who is going to be non-judgmental, who's giving you a safe space, who's going to be empathetic, but who's also going to ask you difficult questions. I think there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. I don't think you need like a clinical diagnosis of depression or anxiety to go to a therapist. I think you can have a therapist as just somebody in your life. I mean, for me, it's just been something for the last 20 years I've had it. And it's not to say you have to be broken, to go to a problem and be fixed by a therapist. It's just really, really useful to have that as a resource. Especially with women, we have so many claims on our time, Like my favorite joke is that I don't know where I should say it here, but it's fine. There's that what's common between the Indian family and the Chinese army is that there's no boundaries, So we have the Indian family who just places so many demands. So if you go to a therapist and you've got someone to talk to who is really giving you that attention, I think it's a great thing for a woman.
Let's take the next question.
Hybrid working was what you suggested, but I also feel that satellite offices is something that women can have a separation between home and office.
Sure, whatever works. When I say hybrid, it means you work a few days from home and then few days you go out and work, wherever the workplace is. That's what I meant by hybrid, away from home.
Sure.
Home and away.
Okay. The question at the back.
Hi. So I've personally had a very different experience. Whenever I've had male bosses, they've been very understanding towards me. But whenever I've had female bosses, life becomes more tougher. So what do you think? I mean, the females are supposed to be more supportive, no? But it's the other way around. So what's your take on it?
Absolutely. No, this is absolutely true, and I've written about it in the book. And one of the statements I've said is that in an ideal world, a woman is another woman's ally. But unfortunately, the world isn't ideal. And somewhere, I think a lot of women who do succeed are so busy trying to prove that they are as good as men, that they seem to, want to show that they're impartial, that they want to show that they're just like men. And somewhere in all this, the warmth is going away and they don't realize, which is why I said, that I'm a big believer in sisterhood, not as in, being partial to women, but just being a support network, because again, that is something that is a huge enabler for other women. So it's very sad that that happens, and we keep talking about paying it forward, and that must happen.
I think just to be a little, empathetic perhaps is maybe women are treating each other the way they've been treated.
Saas bhi kabhi bahu thi.
And if I be a little...
Saas bhi kabhi bahu thi.
Yeah, so exactly. Maybe that's what's been going on. So I hope you are not so scarred by that you might be in the same position.
Do we have time for one last question? Sure. One last question, quickly.
I'm a software developer by profession and also an aspiring author. So when I look for avenues for publishing, then I see two things: the digital world, which is expanding right now, and the traditional publishing houses. So as women, what would you suggest? Because when I see the digital world, it seems quite easy to me that, okay, I can probably give my work and they can publish it for me. But going through the traditional publishing house, so what are your views on that? Because many new authors would be coming up and they would also face the same dilemma.
Well, I'll answer it very quickly. We publish in all formats, right? So there's the physical book, the e-book, the audio book. So the same book gets converted into various formats and readers can choose what they like to read. If you want to publish with a publisher, then you have to approach them and send the proposal and go through the process, and your book will be available in all these formats, hopefully. So it's not that it's only the digital book, right? So digital, I think you see the books available for sale on Amazon, but they're also available in bookstores, in retail and physical form. And I think all formats have an audience.
So what I meant was going through the mode of publishing, for example, Kindle Direct Publishing or the
Self-publishing?
Yeah,
Self-publishing.
Exactly.
So it is your choice. We're out of time, but I can talk to you after the session. And thank you, everyone. Thank you very much.
Yes,
Thank you so much.